we were talking through our strategic plan with our board, and one of the things that our board talked about was like, we just need to be able to find money for our agencies. Like, how do we do that? Somebody sort of joked, like, how do we find the Tinder of grant making to try to bring into our agencies? And I was like, well, I don't know if we can do that, but I love the idea.
Welcome to Grow Healthy, Help People, and a podcast that Accordis, my company, puts on. Today, we're talking with Beck Moore from the Community Action Association of Pennsylvania. So, Beck, you're calling in from Pennsylvania. I'm in Tennessee. How's your morning going?
Not too bad, not too bad. Got the kids off to school this morning. Happy to be talking to you.
As did I. That's a part of being a dad, right? Get the
It's
kids
true.
up, get the kids out the door, get the kids to school. So, you've been with the Community Action Association of Pennsylvania for many, many years, or is this a newer role for you?
I'll be 4 years in December, which feels like it's been much longer and also not that long at all. But
That's great.
really new to human services, came from membership based organizations, youth serving organizations, and found myself here now and happy to be here.
That's great. So it sounds like you've had a lot of experience in the nonprofit realm in different types of organizations. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been in about 22 years now, I think, in
Okay.
nonprofit. So I'm well pickled.
There you go. Well preserved.
Yeah, it's true.
That's great. So do you go by CAP or do you say out the whole name of the organization when you guys refer to yourself?
So when we first talk about ourselves, because not a lot of folks are familiar with community action on the whole. So after people get to know us a little bit, we do call ourselves CAP, or some
Okay.
people say CAP because there are caps and then there's CAP.
There you go. Well, if I get it wrong, my apologies today.
No worries.
So I want to hear some of your story, but then also I want to hear more about the organization and what you guys do. Then I want to hear about some challenges and victories you guys have seen. So tell me a little bit more of your story. You're from that area originally, or where are you from originally? And how did you get from schooling into the nonprofit sector?
No, yeah, appreciate the question. So I originally I'm an Army brat, so was born in Kentucky, raised in mostly Tennessee. So,
Yeah.
get that in common.
Shout out. Yeah.
Bounced around the country a little bit. I ended up in Hawaii for a bit, then Maryland, and then finally in Pennsylvania in kind of high school, middle school years, and went to Penn State. Really was inspired by my grandfather, who was a center director at a Job Corps center, and really loved Job
Okay.
Corps, loved the Forest Service, and that's really what I wanted to do. And went to college and couldn't hack the organic chemistry. Polyatomic ions were my nemesis. Yeah, they won. And I grew up and sort of like, not having a lot. First in my family to go to college, and was working three jobs, trying to play sports, and just couldn't get it right in studying and trying to balance all the things. And I was like, you know what? What else do I like to do? I really love to read. I really love to write. I love history, and so I ended up getting my major, my bachelor's at Penn State in humanities, which really
Okay.
just means I'm good at dinner parties. I know a lot about not a lot, and
Okay.
sort of this degree of like why history influences literature, and went to be a teacher for a hot minute. I didn't really want to be stuck in a classroom, and so I found myself looking for a summer job. Ended up going and working at Girl Scout camp for a summer, and just fell in love with the experience and saw the change in kids over the course of a week compared to a whole school year. And I was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And so I ended up working at Girl Scout camp. I ended up managing camps over a couple of years, and then found myself just having growth opportunities and finding myself as a manager and a supervisor, and eventually went to Wisconsin, came back to Pennsylvania, and sort of just clawed my way up to the top. Had a lot of people who believed in me as a leader, and
Mm.
grew. Ended up being an interim CEO in Girl Scouts for a period of time. I think was really trying to find my way and figure out how to grow as a leader and sort of like living up to people's expectations, and was going through a lot of change in my life, and decided to leave Girl Scouts around 2019 and got recruited for this spot. Had been at Girl Scouts at that point for like 15 years, and love the organization. It's a fantastic organization, but I wanted to sort of prove to myself that I could do something else. I had grown two organizations, found ourselves sort of right, like at the top of the pack in membership growth and a lot of other really amazing things, but I wanted to do something else and prove to myself I could do something else. And so I got recruited for this, and now find myself really in a position where our role at the association is to primarily training and technical assistance, right? So what that means is professional development for most people, but for me, what that means is how can I help an organization run more effectively, uh, reducing administrative burden and administrative costs so that resources can stay where resources really should, which is helping our local communities. And so in this role, I've taken what I've learned in operations and now I get to consult and educate and find solutions. And then I get to step out and say, now it's yours, right? And do what you're going to do. And then I don't have to stay there and figure it all out from there, which is, the hardest part.
So is your work more consulting or training? Do you find yourself digging into these individual organizations or saying, here's content, let's go walk you through a process?
Yeah, I would say now my job as the CEO is really to, I think, ask a lot of questions and do a lot of listening and try to figure out where there are trends across the 42 agencies that we support every day and say, where can we find solutions? Sometimes, yes, it might be me coming in asking questions. It might be doing some direct consulting. I've served sort of as an interim for a little while at one of our agencies. Sometimes it's fixing bylaws of an organization. Really sexy work, to be clear, Shay, but like things that like I geek out about, but most people
I
are like
love this stuff. I love
governance.
looking at
But
bylaws. Most people hate it. Yeah, I love
yeah,
it
no,
like you
I
do.
governance of nonprofits I think is really an interesting thing that
Hmm.
can either make or break an organization, frankly.
Totally. Yes. So you tell me about your team. Is it a large team, a small team? How do you guys deploy? And then I want to hear more about specific programs that you have through the CAP.
Yeah, so when I first got here, we had, I think it was 4 or 5 staff. We had about $1 million budget. And fast forward to now, and we have a staff of 15, we have a $5 million budget. And so we've grown our services. We receive about $1 million in a contract to do the things that we do from the state around the funding stream that our agencies all have as a unified funding stream. And that's community services block grant. So we're specifically contracted to do work with specific around that particular funding stream. We, through our other contracts that we've grown and found, we subsidize another $1 million in training and technical assistance. And so we've done that because we've looked at what we do really well, what the strengths are of our team, and said, okay, how do we do more of this? All with the lens of community action in Pennsylvania first, and how is what this other project is, how is it mission aligned, and how can it grow our main business. So I have an amazing team of people that I have found, some folks who I've worked with in other organizations, and they're sort of what I would call unicorns and have been like, you know what, if you're willing, come here, work with me. I need you. I need this particular skill set. In other instances, folks that I've met within our network, so Georgia Del Frey, I'll give a shout out to her. She's our chief strategy officer. She was working at one of our agencies in Erie, and I was like, you know what, Georgia? As soon as I met her, I was like, I don't know when or how, but we're gonna find you a spot if you're willing to take this journey with me, because I need your brain. I don't know this world. I don't come from human services. You do. You've been here for 24 years. Are you willing to come over to the CAP side, to the dark side, and work at the association? And at that point, she was looking for a change, and I'm really thankful for her. And so it's sort of like a mix of sort of a motley crew. If you line us all up, you're like, I don't know how this works, but if you know anything about Strength Finders, which I am like, it's my Bible. There's like 25 strengths, right? And our team of 15 represents 21 of those strengths. And so it's been really intentional on my part to try to figure out, right? Like, it's not about job description, it's about job function. And we project manage everything out. It doesn't matter what somebody's role is. It's about figuring out this is what we need at this point for this project, and you're going to be a part of this project team. And so we've just continued to grow our folks. And I tell people all the time, we only see each other 2 times a year. Otherwise, we work in this little plastic box. But when we see each other, it really matters because we're facilitating a conference with 300 people. And so if we don't like each other, we don't work well, it's going to become really apparent. And so we believe really strongly, I believe very strongly in instituting, really clear workplace culture expectations, behavior expectations, and that's part of the secret here at CAP.
That's awesome. Sounds like you guys run a pretty tight, I would say maybe well-oiled machine. What are some of the tools that you use day in and day out? I know other nonprofit leaders that might see this podcast are saying, well, that sounds great, Beck. How? What
Yeah.
do you use? So what are some of the tools? Project management, database management, all those kind of things. What do you guys use?
So when I first started here, we had sort of like what I would describe as negative infrastructure. We didn't have a CRM. We didn't have any functionality in terms of tracking it, what we were doing, how we were doing it, who our members were, and so that was number one for me was getting a CRM and making sure that CRM had a resource space that sort of created the locked content for our members, because at the same time, it was about, for me, it was about how do I build infrastructure for the future vision of this organization, not now, but for the future. Because I don't
Okay.
want to keep changing the technology that we're using, right?
Sure.
That's building
Build for
infrastructure is
tomorrow,
already
not for
right,
yesterday.
right. It's
Yeah.
already exhausting to build infrastructure. How do we build? I don't want to keep rebuilding. So first
Yeah.
step for us was getting a CRM. We ended up landing on an association relationship management, so it's technically an ARM, but
Yeah.
that really built kind of the first
Which
step
which
for.
tool did you guys use? Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, happy to. Happy to give them a shout out. We've helped to facilitate the integration of Growth Zone for other associations because we believe in it so much. So
Yeah.
we use Growth Zone. It was built for
Growth
realtors.
zone. Okay.
It was built for realtors. It was really built through this lens of sales management and growing membership, and that's not what we're trying to do. But the tools that they had were so clearly aligned with what we were trying to create. We needed something that tracked sponsorship. We needed something that tracked registration. It was all in one space. I didn't want to have to create APIs from one system to another, right? Like, how did we find the thing? And initially, we talked about going to Salesforce, and no shade at Salesforce. I love Salesforce. I've used it in other organizations, but I didn't want to have to build out the system. I needed something that was sort of ready made.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
great. What are other systems? So that's in the CRM, or you said association management side of things. What about like project management? What do you guys use for project management? What do you use for, or any other software that you use that you might want to point people to for certain functions?
So we started first with Planner, and that really became the function in which we could see. I could see at any given point. We used it for one-on-ones. That also tracked everybody's projects. We had project planners specifically, and then it got really just too cumbersome. We got too complicated as we added additional projects and contracts outside of our membership. And so today we use Asana. Love Asana. We use it for everything from our conference planning to one-on-ones to team meetings, right? Everything is tracked within Asana. And it's cost effective, and it's, every single team member's on there. It's pretty simplistic to link to our strategic plan, the reporting. Can't say enough good about Asana.
That's great. And if for accounting, do you use QuickBooks Online or Applos, or what systems do you use for accounting?
QuickBooks Online, which there's then a link back to our payroll system. There's a link back to our CRM, and we do outsource our financials, which makes things a little bit easier for us. I have an amazing executive assistant who also helps with a lot of the uh, finance pieces of things. But everybody's really kind of trained up on all of those core systems so that at any given point, somebody needs to do an upload. It doesn't have to be me that answers all the questions, right? The team all helps with all the things. I couldn't do this without them.
Sounds like you guys have a lot of systems in place that are necessary. Many organizations that my company, Accordis, we are a back office for nonprofits and ministries. So accounting, database, all the systems you're talking about, project management, marketing, all of those things we help with. And you'd be surprised how many organizations, when you ask that question, what systems do you use? They say spreadsheets.
No,
Like,
thank
wow,
you.
you're $1 million year organization. You use spreadsheets for donor database. That's a tough situation. Or just QuickBooks Online. It can work. It does not work well for that. It is not built for that. So I'm glad to hear you say you've got some awesome tools in place that are helping you guys move forward. Tell me
Oh, and
about a few of your. Go ahead.
no, I just want to say, and I appreciate that so much what you just said there, because I think part of what we talk about a lot at CAP is, right, you could have 20 people and you could be using spreadsheets to get all the things done. But the reality is, if you institute some of those tools, you could keep the same 20 staff, but you're going to be able to repurpose them to do a lot more of what you're already doing because the burden is just not there, right? The two
Exactly.
hours it took me to fill out a report now takes me 10 minutes because I just have to click run report.
Yes, exactly. Efficiency allows you to accomplish more of the mission. We frequently say of Accord is my company, we're a bandwidth company. We give you back bandwidth. We
Right,
take all the stuff that fills up your day and say, just give that to us, and you guys go lead the programs and take care of whoever you're serving.
right,
You're better
absolutely.
at that. We can handle this other office stuff. So I like the model you guys have. Tell me some more about some of your programs.
Yeah, so part of what we try to think about is how do we create enterprise solutions? And so when I say that, I mean we will look at technologies that we know will be helpful and effective to reducing again administrative burden. Oftentimes we're looking also for a solution at CAP, and so we'll implement that technology and then we'll source it out to our agencies at a reduced cost. So one of those is Policy Map. Policy Map is a data mapping tool. As I'll use my dad language, it's pretty slick.
Uh,
It allows you to upload data. And right now, what's really interesting about this is census data is down, at the government, and so on a federal level. And so we are able to use Policy Map, which has all of that data uploaded and is able to be used. So you can track, you can use it for case for support, you can look really deeply at local communities. So typically a nonprofit to pay for that alone, it's pretty pricey. We're able not only to get that for all of our agencies, but then also subsidize that cost. So in terms of kind of the training side of things, it's enterprise solutions in that space. It's also doing things like, webinars to train up, but then we have what we call our cohort calls, so like positions across agencies so that they can learn from one another, because we recognize that there are folks that are 20 years into their career and then there are folks that are brand new. They're all trying to learn. They all have best practices. So for us, best practices come from, cross-functional learning across multiple agencies. So we try to create a convening space, sort of really a community within community action for them to learn from one another. We also have all this, two other projects that we're working on right now, which are outside of community action but mission aligned. We have our PA Navigate project, so we're the community engagement partner in the state of Pennsylvania. That system is a closed loop referral platform for healthcare to provide referrals back to nonprofits and CBOs. There's a similar work happening actually in Tennessee. So our job is to onboard all of the nonprofits across the state to that platform, help educate them about why, help them do some of the integration work into their operations, and then help provide the reporting back to the state at the Department of Human Services about what the progress is on that. So technology heavy, but relationship driven project for sure, and very data heavy. And then the other project is a pilot research grant with HHS on the federal side to provide diapers to those who are in need. So across the country, one in two people have diaper need, and what that ends up creating are challenges with respect to people getting to work. Because if people don't have diapers to send to childcare, you can't send your kids to childcare. And so our job is to administrate that grant with a number of local partners on the western side of the state and support again, right, like creating wraparound services for people who are coming for those needs. And so, because we know that if people are coming for diapers, it's just not the diaper need; it's something else also. And so our job is to administrate that on the western part of the state of Pennsylvania.
Hmm. Is all of the work you do today inside the state of Pennsylvania? I know you guys are a Pennsylvania organization, but frequently influence and leadership spills over state lines.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question that you asked. So a couple of years ago, we have a learning management system that we call CAP Learn, and so creates it's
Okay.
like an online school, right?
Yeah.
Here in the
LMS
state.
means, yeah, LMS, Learning Management System, is an industry of software. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have over 3,000 users in the state of Pennsylvania that we provide content there. And what we saw was that our other association counterparts, many of them maybe only have one or two staff, or they're looking for a learning management system, but they don't necessarily have the team to drive the content. And so I said to our team, I was like, you know what, we should really be just, how do we just take what we're doing and white label it over? And so today we support Washington, Oregon, Minnesota, Alabama, Kansas, Nebraska, uh, some content creation in Oklahoma, hopefully a couple other states here soon that we're working on. And so we take all of what we do, we make a really, cost efficient price tag. We do some conversations first to make sure, is this really fitting what you need? You know, here's kind of the tiers in which we can work. And then we take all the learning we're creating, white labeled over for them, and now their users all have, and then we do all the administration work for it. And then those contracts, right? They help to pay for additional content that we're creating, not just for us, but also for those other states.
That's brilliant. That's so cool.
Again, it kind of goes to the phrase like what I've already said. It's what were we doing really well, and how do we do more of it? That's kind of always my mantra. What's the secret sauce of this project, right? And how do we influence this project to do this? And it's part of why we've grown so dramatically over the last 5 or 4 years.
Yeah, and what you've done is the perfect model for how a nonprofit can operate. So the situation is donors, funders, state government, federal grants funded you guys. You built tools to serve all the people in Pennsylvania, then realized, wait, we can use these tools to influence folks across the country, maybe even the world, and generate some revenue from that. So like it is the upward spiral, if you will, not a downward spiral, an upward spiral of success breeding success breeding success. That's really
Absolutely.
awesome, Beck.
Well, and it's No, thank you for that. I think the other interesting part is like we've also just used some SEO, some search engine optimization to get our content out there. And so if somebody Googles home visitor safety course, they're going to find our course. And so what that's also created is that we'll have random people reach out and be like, "Hey, we want to purchase this course from you. We saw it. We've heard really great things about it just from the Google search." And so we've been able to sell that a couple courses as well to other states for, a licensing period of time. So you can have this for 2 years. This is not forever content because we've got to continually improve the content that we're creating. But for the next 2 years, it's yours. You want it in 2 more years, it's already going to be improved and you can buy it from us again.
That's awesome. So tell me a couple of success stories. I mean, you work with lots of organizations. You mentioned you've worked on bylaws, and I'm sure organizations have had train wrecks in process that you've been able to get involved in. Tell me a couple of success stories of either individuals you've been able to help, or organizations, you don't have to name them, you've been able to help and see the success go from, man, a tough situation to now flourishing and growing.
I would say our biggest success I think it was 2 years ago, this past year, is we were talking through our strategic plan with our board. And one of the things that our board talked about was like, we just need to be able to find money for our agencies. Like, how do we do that? Somebody sort of joked, like, how do we find the Tinder of grant making to try to bring into our agencies? And I was like, well, I don't know if we can do that, but I love the idea. And so I am somebody who is a shameless promoter always, so shout out to the Thinking Cap podcast, our podcast at Cap. And we just anybody that I can get in front of. Anytime I'm asked to present on something, it's always around, right? Like the question, yes, I want to be paid for that speaking engagement. That helps to grow other revenues. But also, if you can't pay us because you're a small organization, that's okay as long as you give me the opportunity to still talk about community action on the whole and who we are as an association. And so through some of our work, we now have very close relationship with the Department of Human Services. And so about 2 years ago, they called us and they were like, "Hey, we have some leftover dollars that we're not going to spend. We need to spend it pretty quickly. Could you use $2 million?" Absolutely, I can use $2 million. Yes, I can. And so what we were able to do was to take that 2.1 million and create a grant cycle for our agencies to invest back in their infrastructure because we knew that our staff of our local agencies, they need to be mobile. They need to be, they're doing home visits, they're doing all kinds of really amazing things, but they didn't have the technology to support what they were doing. And so how do we take that and invest back in that infrastructure so that they can increase their infrastructure? And there's a couple other things within, like, here are the 5 projects you can apply for. And so I'm really excited to say that today we've been able to take that 2.1 million. We were able to collect some interest on it and grow some of those dollars, which is fantastic. But then also invest back in 21 of our agencies to get anything from, right, like just laptops because nobody's funding that. Get, mobile hotspots, get new laptops so that they're not tied to a friggin' desktop every day.
Yeah.
How do you
Infrastructure and
fund that?
overhead are the hardest things to fund.
Right.
Nobody they want to fund programs, not the
Right.
day to day. We need a new laptop. These are 12 years old.
Yeah. So I think, that success point, yeah, we've done a lot of other things too, but I think that to be able to invest back in our agencies in a really big way and give them some core funding that will help for them to continue to grow all day
Mhm.
long, I will take that.
That's awesome. Well, Beck, it's been so great to talk to you this morning. The work you're doing matters in Pennsylvania, but your reach goes well beyond Pennsylvania. And your leadership, your voice in the industry is great. And man, it's been encouraging to hear your story today. Thanks for taking time to be in the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
And if anyone out there is leading a nonprofit and has office work piling up, accounting, marketing, database work, whatever it is, my company, Accordis, we love to help with that. We come alongside organizations like Beck. I don't get to work with Beck, but we'll come along to organizations like Beck and CAP to say, give us the office work. You guys go lead. We'll handle the office work. So Beck, thank you for being on Grow Healthy, Help People.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shay, for having me. And don't worry, we're going to be in touch because I think there's some opportunity for us to work together.
That sounds good. Have a good day.
Thanks, man.